the clock, we're at 10 o'clock. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Sum It Up. I'm Joelle Martinez, President and CEO of the Latino Leadership Institute. I'm joined again by my partner, Harry Hollins, but today this has been a conversation I've been looking forward, and it's not an exaggeration to say months in the making, because of not just the topic, which I think is so important and so timely, about performance and inclusion and really rewriting the rule book around inclusion work in the workplace, but because of today's special guest. Mariana Fagnilli is not only a powerhouse executive, a global leader, just a superpower, but she is also a dear friend of mine. And trust me, when she speaks, I tend to listen. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring her to our community today. When I was thinking about what Mariana could bring to the conversation and to the community, I really thought about her journey and what happens when a powerhouse Latina makes her way to the top in not one, not two, but three global organizations, and understands that, you know, what we're doing around diversity, equity, inclusion actually isn't moving the needle as much as it should. And some would sit back and not get involved. Not her. She went on to rewrite the rules entirely. So she recently released a book, which we'll get into. But this is a woman who has had some of the most senior leadership positions in companies like Johnson & Johnson, Liberty Mutual, and places like Major League Soccer. So also being one of the only Latinas in sports too, which we can dive into. So today we're going to learn about her journey from Argentina to corporate America, from corporate America to really being a leader around inclusion work, and also spending some time, as we love to do, really talking about the superpower of our culture and our identity. So let's dig in. Mariana, welcome. This is so exciting. And Harry and I just can't wait to start the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I just can't wait to have this conversation. It's truly, really, you know, we've been hoping to get together for so long, and then life happened, and we'll talk about it. But I'm super excited to finally be here with both of you.
I'm wonderful. So let's get started. You know, for us, and just tell us a little bit about your early years. You're from Argentina. Give us a little background on that, your family, and ultimately kind of what led you to the United States.
How I ended up here. Well, no,
Yeah.
there first.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of came into this realization later on in life, but I grew up in Argentina in the 70s. I actually have family members who disappeared in 76, you know, because of the military government. And so I always believed that because human rights was a conversation at the dining table, that really shaped me to have then later choose a career in human rights and international human rights law. And so, you know, it ended up there. My dream was to go to the U.S. and work for the UN. And I always say I wanted to be Secretary General of the UN. It didn't happen. But I always I was able to, coming into corporate America, I was able to really kind of marry my passion for helping others and create fair environments, you know, not in the public arena, but in the private arena. Mm-hmm. And so in the work that ended up being and becoming diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel strongly that I married that passion into, you know, the work in corporate America. But in between, I went from being a lawyer to regulatory policy to I spent a lot of time in government affairs and policy and doing regulatory policy globally. And so, you know, moving then after 15 years in pharma to insurance was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I want to prove myself because I feel like it's too easy in pharma. And the pharma people are going to say, like, it's not easy, but trust me, it's much easier than many other companies or industries. And so, and then I went to have fun in Major League Soccer, and yes, we can have the conversation about Latinos in sports, but going to the US was that fulfilling that dream of being a human rights lawyer, international human rights lawyer, working for the UN, which unfortunately never happened, but I found a passion that I could channel into corporate America and drove many years of my career.
Wow, it's amazing, and it's interesting that the last place you and I were together was at the UN. So, you actually did make it to the
Well,
UN, and if I recall, we were in the back of the chamber there, getting into some good trouble and talking about the work we needed to do together. But Harry, I know you have been really excited to jump in, so why don't you?
Yeah, no, excited and nervous. I'll tell you why I'm nervous on my end, Mariana, because I mentioned to mi esposa, Maria Sepulveda, who our guest was, and she literally stopped and said, wait, who did you just say? Turns out I know you talked to a lot of people, you may not remember her. She works for Habitat International. She does a lot of work in Latin America, South America, and she showed me some of the communications back and forth between the two of you. But she said she's amazing. She's been so helpful in my work. And then, of course, she says I better do a good job. So now I'm like, I don't think I've been nervous on the other side. And she's like, she's amazing. So you better be on your P's and Q's. But she just rant and raved about you in turn. So we are just meeting, but apparently you've met my, my wife before me. So I just had to share that with you. But one question I do have for you, Mariana, and literally this came with your opening around. You said you wanted to be Secretary General, and I want to ask you, in kind of your journey, where did your belief and your confidence, and even we know coming into the United States from another country isn't always easy. Sometimes when it's not your language, it's not easy. Where does your kind of fortitude, your belief, your confidence, where did that build up? Can you talk a little bit about that journey that kind of that prepared you for what you've done?
No, my journey is full of, doubting myself all the time. The truth is, as you were asking the question, one name came to my mind, and that is Thor Eriksson. And he was my first boss when I came to the US. And I had the privilege of working with this guy who was, Brazilian and was in the US for a long time. And he was maybe more American than Brazilian, but he sat with me one day and said, your worst enemy is yourself. You don't believe in yourself. And he put a mirror in front of me. And that was it. And every time that I doubt myself, I go back to that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
And sometimes I overdo the confidence, but the thing is, I learn. I tell you, I will confess. Many people know that many times speaking in public would cause me to get some, my hands or my mouth paralyzed, or some the nervousness and the lack of confidence. But sometimes it would happen in a simple meeting early in my career. I would be so petrified that I start like getting numb. And I needed to practice to overcome that, to be able to ask questions and participate. Because then I would kick myself for not saying something, or for not asking the question, or or I would disagree with what was happening in the conversation. I have this thing. I remember there's a chief diversity officer from a large company that many years ago told me, your problem is that you are not comfortable with the status quo. And I was like, that's a problem? I thought that's
right. Not in our book.
Right? Those are the moments where you start like, oh my God, then I should shut up. Then I shouldn't say it, But going back to, I don't want to feel like I feel when I leave the room after not asking the question or not giving what I want to give, or participate. And so it's been a work in progress. Frankly, it's not easy. Sometimes it depends who's in the room. Sometimes I walk into a room full of confidence and I'm like, I got this. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, these people are so much better and smarter and bigger than me. That what I have to offer. So it's, I think I've learned to manage my nervousness, my lack of confidence, my what I think is, I'm not as big as everyone else in the room. I don't deserve to be here. And you know what? I just don't want to feel the way that I feel when I don't participate. So I just deep breath and I do it, and I just continually generate ideas. The thing is, I kill the creative me, the creative self, if I don't, if I'm not confident to move things forward, to create, to bring ideas to a table, to push situations, conversations, people into a direction where I think we need to go, and create the true collective brainstorming that you need in order to really bring diversity of thought and ideas into the conversation. A lot of boardrooms are full of yes people.
Yes.
So true. Well, I mean, I know Harry won't be surprised to find out so much of that resonates with me. I know we've probably both experienced being, one of the only Latinas in the room at any given time. And that's, I think, part of your work and your legacy. But before we jump into your book, Harry and I are big sports fans. We obviously are big in professional sports. And we know this is an industry that really does need representation. We know that we are loyal fans, that, we're going to continue to grow teams. And if you would just take a couple minutes about what you learned, what you experienced, and what your insights, because you truly, and sad statistic here, we're one of the few Latinas in an executive leadership role in any professional sports league or team.
In general terms, I can say that what I hope is that this cycle that professional sports is in moves faster. The cycle of who's leading, who's making decisions, and that cycle goes with elevating Latinos, because we can talk about soccer and the movement really that MLS has been doing in this country, which is truly incredible, and the growth, but the growth doesn't happen without Latinos. Now, Latinos as spectators only, or Latinos as employees to a certain level only, it's not going to lead to sustainability or growth in the long run. It's true for every country.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the professional sports field, it's to start becoming more purposeful about these, which I think, unlike other industries, it hasn't happened. I think that that's what is lacking. I think that because in specific sports like soccer, Latinos are so well represented in the game, we forget about the back office.
Yeah.
And it's not about, it's not just about the players. Because what you bring to the players has to be holistic across the board, being represented into the back office too. And the back office, again, I'm not talking about employees up to director level, but the leadership of these organizations. Again, I think many of the leagues are in a cycle, and I'm just hoping that the cycle goes a little faster so that we can see that growth of Latinos, because there are tons and tons of employees who could be truly leading these organizations in the future.
Yeah.
They are not at the higher levels of the organization.
Yeah. Are there things you think could be done in the community? I'm talking about the Latino community, because as you said, we're spectators, but also through that, spectators were major economic contributors too, both on the field, off the field, in the ecosystem. Are there things that we can do as a community to close that gap quicker or faster, in your opinion?
I'm going to say something that is actually very sad, in my opinion, which is we have this trait, right, that we all recognize about being a community, about, community driven and family driven. But then when I'm personally lacking is the true community commitment, is the true community doing. I want to be very careful when I say this, but unfortunately, I do experience a lot of performative Latinism that is not community driven, that is self-preservation or self-marketing, however you want to call it. And so I have been struggling, frankly, with this for several months now. It's part of my personal journey at this moment. Because when I use the word community within our Latino community, I want to make sure that there's a true meaning to it, that we can come together. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, sure, we can say that as a community we can do A, B, or C. I think that we know what we need to do. I just don't think we're doing it. And what we are not doing is becoming truly a community and supporting all of us. I think we have the power, and this is what is frustrating, frankly, is that we have the power. I say when it comes to DI alone, I say this is a critical moment for DI, period. I think that we all agree on that, regardless of who you are. We have, as a community, as a Latino community, we have this unique opportunity to change the narrative. The narrative has been always driven by other communities. The objectives of each community are a little different, but also because the background on how you get to the conversation of DI is different. We have now the opportunity to reshape this conversation into economic power. This country, we know, doesn't survive without us. It's unsustainable. And so how are we going to truly become one voice in this community to shape this narrative and stop talking about what I call traditional or soft DI, and really make it about performance driven and the impact that we Latinos can continue to have if we become a community in the US.
This is such a perfect segue, so we could really dive into your book and all of your wisdom and knowledge. I was just giving a keynote earlier this week, and I put it frankly because I think a lot of people think DEI. Again, you use the term soft DEI, so want to expand on that a bit. But they think it's just kind of the social movement. But I spend a lot of time crisscrossing the country, really trying to link DEI to GDP, especially when it relates to Latinos, because we are the second largest, fastest growing population. Not closing income gaps, leadership gaps, small business growth gaps is not just a problem socially. This is an economic problem. We lose billions, if not trillions of dollars year over year by not putting really performance-driven strategies on the table. And so you are a national leader in this space. Tell us a little bit about, your insights around DE&I. When you think about performance-based DE&I, what does that even mean to you? And give us a little preview of what you wrote in your fabulous book that everyone needs to get a copy of after today's show.
It's precisely because it's about those KPIs, right? Is how do we measure? And DI or DI professionals in general, I think that there's no one company where I work with or for, or that it's like the biggest struggle is how do we measure, right? And so that became a huge part of writing the book and ensuring that I could help organizations and leaders rethink this part of DEI, so that it's truly something that we can show that is measurable and the impact that I can have. And I started with this because I always say, if there's one more company that I can hear that is going to lead me to the McKinsey report from 2020, I'll just kill my. That means that you haven't done the homework. If you have to keep pointing at a report that surely has been updated every 2 years, but from 25 years ago, then what has happened in the last 25 years in your company? So I actually just a quick note before our meeting, because I knew this wasn't to be part of an important conversation. But what do we usually measure? Representation. That's the easiest one, right? We measure representation. We measure how many people go to a program. The problem with programs is they have become more compliance than anything else. So check the box, the company stops being liable in a way. We told you, so if you screw up, it's your fault, you get fired, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, what I like to think about is it's not a bad thing to measure representation. But what is next? All right, so let's just say that next to representation is, well, measure representation, and then we measure employee development. Great. We measure employee development, and then we measure employee advancement. Fantastic. So that's we're evolving. And then what do we do? If we don't measure the impact that those employees are having in the organization, whether it's because there's stronger employee engagement, whether it is because now those people are positioned in decision-making, roles where we are thinking differently. If the teams are not if we are incapable of measuring the innovation, in the rate of innovation in our diverse teams versus homogeneous teams, and let's be honest, when we talk about diversity, we talk about all diversity. We're not saying, the whites versus everyone else. No, if I have a group, and this happens, if you have a manager who's Latino, I'm more likely going to hire a lot of Latinos in their team. That becomes a homogeneous team too. So we also need to be sure that when we talk about diversity, we're talking about true diversity and not just, this group is doing great. How many Latinos they have? Wait, this group is full of 85% women. Then we're recreating the problem with a different color, right? So, I was thinking about this when I was writing the book. I'm thinking, for example, let's talk about financial impact indicators, revenue per employee across diverse teams, return on inclusion investments. They really, you're investing in this training, to call it. I hate calling PI training. Nobody became an expert after that. But how do you measure? We do employee engagement surveys, right? We get results. We say, oh, the employee engagement rate in this team is bad. What's happening with the manager? But do we work with the manager on inclusive behavior, and then rate the performance of the team and the individuals based on the inclusive behaviors that are being applied, and how are they being applied? So it's everything is a consequence of another thing, and how we are measuring along the way. But to me, it's like, to me, there are 5 key areas, and I don't wanna mess this up. But innovation and ideation metrics, again, like, are diverse teams innovating more than homogeneous teams? How are they doing that? How is psychological safety being measured in this case? Product adoption across different customer demographics, and then talent optimization, right? Employee engagement scores across different segments, collaboration effectiveness scores. We don't measure collaboration. We don't measure collaboration. Knowledge sharing indices, because there's a lot of people in this group that like holding information as opposed to sharing information. If you share information, now you brainstorming, now you have more ideas coming to the table. That leads to innovation. So I'm not saying this is easy, okay? I'm actually saying this is extremely complex and complicated and difficult to do. But we haven't spent the time to actually do it. So we go back to measuring representation, measuring, talent growth. We're measuring, but not. And again, I'm not saying those KPIs are not valuable. They're only valuable if you start tying them up to business objectives. If you're actually making them as part of a comprehensive approach to the work that you do as an organization, not as an isolated data points.
You know,
Oh, go ahead, Harry.
no, I was going to ask, I know we both are just chomping at the bit. Mariana, we have a lot of graduates and folks in our community we've worked with that are in HR and compliance, and some have, made it into the boardroom. Hopefully we have a lot more attain a position. And from that, one question I have from you is, and I know, having been in the boardroom myself, I come from the corporate development side. So as you know, in your position, my KPIs are pretty easy in mergers and acquisitions. They're pretty clear KPIs. But when you talk about implementing and embedding these principles, I want to hear from you around the process of getting buy-in from the CEO and the board, right? These things, because I know how much work you do on front end, but I also know if you don't have the buy-in there, then it is just performative and it doesn't go anywhere. You've been in this position several times, so you've worked with a number of CEOs on the board. How do you actually get their buy-in so this implementation execution actually means something?
So the first thing I'm going to say is, stop trying to push DI for pushing DI, and really focus on the performance of the organization, because that's what they want. That's what they want to hear. That's what they are there for, right? So be very strategic from the very beginning in how the work you're going to do is going to help them perform better, retain talent, and grow that talent to give you better solutions. That's why the approach has to be extremely holistic. Now, I'm not forgetting the beginning of DI. I'm not forgetting why, we also do DI, which is ensuring, compliance, or ensuring that there's respect in the organization. That I'm not forgetting that. But I'm saying you have to go from A to Z really fast in that business case. Because otherwise you're just asking for, sort of the DI in the what I call the traditional way, as opposed to really how they are going to be impacted. What I will say is that in my case, many times I just did it before I asked for I asked for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. And your ERGs are extremely hungry in most cases to actually do things bigger than what they're usually doing.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of talent there that is completely dormant in a way. So something that I will say I've done very successfully in many organizations is working with the ERGs differently, not individually, but as a whole. So creating, to say something, a multicultural advisory council that brings together all of your ERGs, and you go around the company and ask for some challenges that they may have, whether it's benefits, because, you find out that there's a lot of complaints from the LGBT community, for example, on who are the providers of your benefits, or, new moms who are like, these benefits are, okay, well, that's one, benefits. Market expansion or marketing campaigns, or, everyone has a problem that they want to solve. And those teams are most likely lacking the diversity they need to be as creative and strong as they need to be.
Yeah.
And where's your talent? Sitting in ERG, celebrating whatever days in the calendar.
Wow.
Yeah.
So give them those challenges, make it structured, and show them what they can do. I will say it hasn't failed to me, and that is what I always call is the fourth step on my framework, which is the one that makes me really happy, which is innovation acceleration. It doesn't fail. You create the environments. Maybe you create a micro environment within the ERGs and expand it, and start showing the company what diverse talent can do.
Yeah. There's so much to take in, and I want to kind of close out this section before we talk about our Latino superpower. But I can't have you on this show and have this conversation and not reflect back to our time together at the end of last year in New York. And we knew change was coming on the horizon, and we knew that diversity, equity, and inclusion was going to face a lot of resistance. And we knew that the work must continue, again, because companies needed to not only survive, but thrive. If you could just give us a little bit from your own personal perspective, your insights, your wisdom, your working, how do you frame this moment in your mind, and what gives you hope about the work into the future?
Oof.
I like to go.
No, I mean, listen, I just, in full transparency, this moment in time had caused me to leave the US and move to Spain, because it was taking a toll on my mental health. It's as simple as that. And I needed to get away, and I needed to do this work from a completely different environment and to try something new, and to be as far as from civilization as you can be, because I'm in a town of 1,000 people in the middle of the mountains in La Rioja. But that's truly, I mean, it was very hard on me, and I know it was very hard. It's very hard on a lot of people. It's been also hard for me to leave, and not leave the work behind, and because I sometimes wonder, so who am I if I'm not saying to fight, right? But I need to protect myself in order to fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's, put the oxygen mask first. And the thing is, I continue to do this work, but what I'm for, right now, and last night it was 3 a.m. here. It was 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. over there, whatever it was. And I was on the phone with a colleague of ours who's struggling, and she doesn't know, what's next. And this is a conversation that is happening to a lot of us in the field. Aside from a lot of people who are not in the field and are just the recipients of what's happening. It's scary. I think that is calming down in a way. However, to me, again, this is a pivotal moment, not just for the Latino community, like I said before, but for everyone, to really figure out what's next and in this evolution. Because there's no question that DEI has evolved. I think that we professionals have, I'm going to get slapped for this one, but very lazy and very comfortable in our ways, and not really evolved with organizations. And if we don't do a mea culpa and realize what we haven't done so far, we're never going to evolve. It's going to be another cycle until we get hit again. So what is the end goal and objective? So my hope is that this is the aha moment that we need to grow, to really truly evolve this practice. One of the problems I think that we have is one of those. It's a practice, it's not a profession. You don't go to school for this. Sure, there are courses here, there, but you say DEI, and to be honest, I've seen a lot of surveys by different organizations in the last 6 months, and I'm surprised that the conclusion in all cases is, companies are continuing to invest in DEI, companies are continuing to push for DEI, companies are like, what are they doing? What is DEI? What exactly is behind the actions of DEI for all those who are saying that they are continuing?
Exactly.
Because I've been in too many CDO roundtables where all I hear is, we have to continue to fight. To fight what? Is my question. We need to continue to grow. If inclusion is not about everyone, what are we doing? If there are people who are regardless of what we think, regardless of the political intentions, regardless of whether we think it's fair or not, regardless of whether we think it is ethic or not, right? Because we all have different values, and who are we to judge someone else's values? The bottom line is, if we are not about building consensus and understanding and hearing each other and really trying to make it work for everyone, what are we doing? And I'm far from defending certain actions and certain politicians but I also understand that this work is about everyone. And we are where we are because we have not approached this work internally in organizations by truly listening and bringing every voice to the table.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Wow. I mean, I'm feeling, and I know Harry is too. I mean, you've put words and emotions to, I know what a lot of us in this work are feeling. And I just want to amplify the importance of that self-care, of that mental and physical preservation. And also this notion that, you know, to have, this isn't training, this isn't practice, this is the way of living, it's the way of leading, it's the way of building businesses. It's so much more than that. It's a way that humanity should work and also end up improving the bottom line. And I know you and I share that philosophy. But maybe this is a moment when things are being, you know, shaken to the core, that we could build up better, differently, with greater results. Because I think that all three of us would agree we weren't moving the needle enough, and there was so much work being done that now we actually have to be more strategic, look at KPIs, look at performance, and really look at how do we actually close gaps, grow businesses, and have those things working hand in hand.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, and because I know you both care about this at the core, this is how we are going to have and build opportunities for Latinos and for everyone else. But you know, this is the path to really bring Latinos into the conversation and make them a critical element of growth for organizations. They're not just there because we are just measuring representation. They're there because they're essential to sustainability and growth.
So Harry, I know that leads into kind of this question about Latina superpower, if you want to go for it. And then we'll end with the lightning round of fun questions. I think this has been,
I'm sure I'm unpacking the brilliance you just, and the great advice. I was actually taking notes for myself, so thank you. You know, one about superpower, and I want to bring it just to a really kind of basic human level, is, you know, we talk about, I think the visual is important for someone to see someone like them, been through their journey, been in their shoes in these positions, and you've been in rooms that there's not a lot of Latinas at your level there. We know the numbers, we know the data behind it, but if you're sitting now with a freshman, someone in high school, maybe a freshman in college, Latina, she's listening, she has aspirations to go where you've been. What would be some of the most important advice you would give someone after everything you've seen and been through? I'm sure you have thoughts around where this is headed and what it could look like and what the fight may be going forward. What would you share with that young Latina, bright eyes, and she wants to be that next one in the boardroom?
You know, I think that again, you have the question, and people who have spoken to me in my journey have come to mind. And the first one was, again, I mentioned Thor Erickson, who is my first boss in the U.S., who said, you know, you're your worst enemy. You don't believe in yourself, and that's what I definitely make sure that everyone at any level understands, that don't ever doubt yourself. Don't let anyone, you know, do that to you. I mean, if anyone has just stay your ground. Really pay attention all the time about any chance where you feel that you're losing that sense of confidence, because obviously I think that it's natural to build confidence through the years, but don't ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong to a room. Or you don't belong to a conversation, because even if all you have are questions, that is what is pushing people to think differently, maybe, or inviting others to give an opinion where they may not be, you know, willing or be nervous about giving an opinion or sharing ideas. So even if all you have are questions for the room that you're walking in, just ask those questions. The other person that comes to mind is Ruben Taborda, who is the Chief Procurement Officer at Johnson & Johnson. And he was, without even knowing, my first sponsor. I knew that anywhere he went, my name was in that room. And the one thing he said to me, and I was a manager at J&J, you know, maybe a year into the organization, where I stayed 10 years, but he said, pay it forward. What he taught me in that moment was, doesn't matter where you are, positionally speaking in the organization, you have privilege always, compared to someone else. So make sure that you are always there to pay it forward. If there's always going to be someone that you can help. That to me has been so critical in everything that I've done in my career when it comes to Latinos. Because if I can make a connection, why not? If I can, tell you about such and such, why not? If I can, maybe in the future there's an opportunity, why not? You know, uh, why do I want to have, such amazing connections if I'm not sharing with the rest of, our community who can really engage and grow? Um, I remember my niece a few months ago in Miami. She called me and she's like, "Hey, I just lost my job and I don't know what to do." And and I just reached out to 5 fabulous Latinas in Miami, and I said, "They won't have jobs for you, but they have networks."
Mm-hmm.
And so I coach her into that, and I help her connect, and she did find a job, but not because they found her a job, but because in her job journey, now she had connected with these 5 fabulous Latinas who helped her build confidence. And so always my third thing is always connect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always connect. If you find, if you find that opportunity to continue to build your network, this community can be so incredible, full of people with knowledge and connections that can open doors for you and that can fill you with knowledge, and that to me is huge, the networking piece.
Love that. Love that. Thank you.
All right, so a couple just fun and light, and then I want you to tell everyone where we can grab your book, because I think everyone listening today now knows just how brilliant you are and why I feel so lucky to have you in my orbit and be able to call you up. But what is one book that you have on your shelf today that you would, other than yours, tell people interested in all of this conversation today to read?
Well, actually, we've been having a conversation about books in the last few months with my husband, and we're actually both going to reread Pillars of the Earth. We are very deep into
Yeah.
into a lot of things, and we both read it, but we are going to do this again because it's just that moment in time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Isn't it not? And then finish this sentence. Inclusion is powerful when.
I just think inclusion is always powerful if you know how to do it right. It's easier not to be inclusive. So inclusion is powerful when we are thoughtful and purposeful about, building something bigger than ourselves. When we want to really bring community together. Inclusion is powerful when we are not doing it for ourselves, but for everyone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mariana, I know Harry and I could go on for hours.
Easily.
We might have to bring you back because I know
We've done it.
so much here, but everyone, you have got to grab her book, Inclusion Driven Performance. I bought it on Amazon. You could also get it from Barnes and Noble. She is truly a guiding light as we're all trying to, wrap our minds around the evolution around DEI, how we really create change around inclusion, something that we all care deeply for. But she is also, a beacon for a lot of us as we look at what leadership could and should look like, especially a strong Latina leader. So Mariana, with deep gratitude and appreciation, not just for your friendship, but for the work you continue to lead and for the path you have paved for so many of us to follow. I just thank you. Thank you, my friend, for sharing some space and some time and some wisdom with us today.
No, thank you both so much. I mean, I know, Joel, you and I can go forever, and we have so much fun talking. Harry, this was such a treat. Such a treat. I'm so excited, and say, please, send a huge hug to your wife.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honor and pleasure meeting you. Absolutely.
Yes. Everyone, thank you. That was another episode of Sum It Up. We'll see you again in just a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.